The Quinnipiac men's ice hockey team was one victory away from a trip to the Frozen Four. The one thing standing in their way was the defending national champions. Was the outcome expected? We officially wrap up winter sports and then dive headfirst into spring. And as always, we give you our final roars. It's Tuesday night, and you know what that means. It's time for Bobcat Breakdown. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Bobcat Breakdown. I'm your host, Liz Flynn, and I'm thrilled to be joined with M.J. Baird and Tom Krosnowski. Boys, how are we doing tonight?
Glad to be here on the desk, Liz. Glad to be sharing it with M.J. Baird. I'm expecting some fiery debate tonight.
Yield to redundance, Liz.
Okay, we'll jump right in then. Well, according to the calendar, it's spring, but let's start with some winter sports conclusions. The men's ice hockey team was slated in the Midwest Regional Final for the NCAA tournament and faced Arizona State Sun Devils in the first round. Quinnipiac skated to a 2-1 win and then moved on to face the defending champs, the Minnesota Duluth Bulldogs. Unfortunately, this would be the end of the road for the Bobcats as they were defeated 3-1, and you were both in Allentown for the weekend and got a close look at these games. MJ, I'll ask you first. Was this team Frozen Four worthy?
I mean, it depends how you define Frozen Four worthy, Liz, but based on the, kind of the most face level, I would say no, they didn't deserve to get to the Frozen Four. I don't think at the beginning of the season, if you asked them if they would deserve to get to the Frozen Four, their answer would be yes either. I mean, coming in after such a bad season last year, and that's really not, I'm not exaggerating there. This last year was a bad season for this team. For them to do what they did, to win a game in the NCAA tournament, was actually a great season for the team.
It was. Ultimately, no, Liz. This team was not good enough to get to the Frozen Four. There just wasn't enough consistency. They repeatedly lacked the whole 60-minute complete effort there. That showed up against Brown in the regular season, showed up against Brown in the playoffs, showed up against Arizona State, where they were leading that game late, and it just got too close. The scoring and the goals against for this team were both top 5 in NCAA all year.
Great stats.
And then in the playoffs, they only scored 7 goals in 2 games. In 4 games. That's only even 2 a game. That's significantly less than they had before. The goals against also went up, and some of their big stars on offense just went away. Odin Tufto had 1 goal and 3 points in his last 8 games. Bon Giovanni had no goals in his last 7. I could go on again. Ethan DeYoung had 1 goal in his last 12. Prisky only had 3 goals in his last 10. Fortunato missed the time. A lot of the stars just, they weren't there, or they didn't get the job done, and because of that, this team, although, as you said earlier, it's a great season, they just weren't Frozen Four worthy.
Yeah, I'm going to bring this up multiple times tonight. All those stats you just spoke to, inexperience, and I think that's the bottom line. Duluth was the better team. They won the game, as they should have. Quinnipiac really, it was a 3-1 game, and it was empty netter, but at least in my opinion, Quinnipiac didn't really stand a chance in that game. So I think Duluth deserves to be there to answer Liz's question.
And if you want to talk immaturity and youth movement, Rand Pecknold even said after the game and the loss that there were some players in the team who were sort of pouting a little bit. They were saying, it's not going my way, and that just doesn't seem like a Frozen Four team to me.
Exactly.
Great team, bright future ahead,
For sure.
But this year they're just a little bit short.
Well, guys, you mentioned the decline in play as we got towards the end of the season. At the end of the regular season, the team had a 26-7-2 record before falling to Brown in 2 games in the ECAC quarterfinals and then Duluth in the NCAA regional finals. Tom, what is the biggest reason for this late decline?
Liz, I don't often like to say that one player has a dramatic impact on a team. When I heard what Rand Pecknold said about the stats with and without Brandon Fortunato, it completely sold it for me. With Brandon Fortunato, the team was 25-1. That's a top 5 team, easily.
Absolutely.
Without Brandon Fortunato, 6-5-1, 1-3 in the playoffs. And his absence was felt in both the power play and at even strength. Not including a game against St. Lawrence, who was the worst team in ECAC hockey and inflated the stats a little bit. Not including that game, the Bobcats scored just 3 power play goals in the 11 games without Brandon Fortunato. They weren't moving the puck well. They were able to lock in on Chase Prisky, and it just stifled the power play's creativity. And at even strength, nobody was moving the puck. It was a lot of dump and chase hockey. They really missed a dynamic without Fortunato that really hurt this team's play.
Yeah, when Fortunato went down with that season-ending injury, and for that to occur in practice, absolutely devastating for this team. I think it's very important, you said, not a lot of times can you say one player makes that much of a difference, but I'm not afraid to say if Fortunato is healthy this whole year, Quinnipiac is worthy of the Frozen Four.
I agree with that.
Maybe even a national championship. I mean,
strong praise.
You got to play great in the last 2 games of the year if you make it to Buffalo. But if he's on this team, just maybe this team wins its first ever national championship. But Liz, to answer your question, what do I attribute the late season decline to, rather? And that is this youth and inexperience that we've already talked about. I think when you have 9 to 10 freshmen in the lineup on any given day, 10 actually in that game against Duluth because Nick Germain was out with injury, that is half of your lineup, or just under half. Players who are out on the ice for the first time in a tournament game. Or, you want to look at the Brown series, players who are playing in a conference playoff game for the first time without their captain nonetheless. Different story. But still, these players just don't have the experience, and in the playoffs, it takes experience to win. At the end of the season, when you're fighting to be a top 4 team, which Quinnipiac was, it takes experience. The Bobcats didn't have it. I was saying it all year long that come the end of the season, I think it would catch up to them. And here we are, and it did.
I think Fortunato would have helped with that, too. He would help provide that experience. And when you see the young players have to step up, it's the type of players that maybe aren't the good puck mover that Brandon Fortunato is.
Exactly.
They just aren't able to do the things that he can, and they lost something without that. And, the youth is definitely a valid answer, too.
We talk about last year, the team having a down year. Even the year before that, they didn't make the NCAA tournament. So coming into this year, only the senior class had NCAA experience. You can't expect to make a Frozen Four when that is what your roster looks like.
Well, guys, you covered the past and the present, so now let's fast forward into the future. In a few years from now, what are we going to remember most about this year's team? MJ?
Well, I said earlier, Liz, and I guess this is kind of contradictory, that one person makes a difference, but I'm going to go with it here. I think 1, 2, 5 years down the line, we're saying that we remember most about this team, Chase Priskie. The kid is a phenomenal talent on the ice, but look at what he does off the ice as well. And I think that is the biggest thing for me. Rand Pecknold has said a couple times this year as we come down the stretch, Priskie's the best captain he's ever had. And that, for me, speaks volumes about someone and their character. When Priskie missed time in the Brown series because of his suspension, the team collapsed without him. They just were not whole. They blew leads in the third period both times. He's going to be an NHL talent one day. It might be this year. It might be next. It could be 2 years down the line. But when he is, we're going to look back and say, Chase Priskie is why we remember this season. Not because they had 10 freshmen, not because they beat Arizona State in an NCAA tournament game, not because Fortunato went down with injury. I think it's because Chase Priskie was a senior leader on this team.
As great as Priskie was, we're going to remember this season as the dawn of a new day for Quinnipiac athletics, men's ice hockey specifically, I should say. They came into the year coming off the worst season in 20 years, the first losing record in 20 years. The captain called it an embarrassing performance. They wanted to come on in and completely redefine the culture, the identity. Like you mentioned, what Priskie did was great. And they bounced back on the ice, they bounced back off the ice, the culture was awesome. But the thing we're going to remember moving forward is going to be the impact of the freshman class that the seniors gave to them. The freshman class actually outscored the senior class with both goals and points.
There's more of them.
As you see on your screen. And
there's more of them.
Yes, there's more of them. But moving forward, there's going to be a lot more pressure on this freshman class. And I think that this year, getting those lots of reps moving forward, you're going to remember that. I'm sure the senior class helped out a lot, which is not something, last year was a smaller senior class and not too many high-impact freshmen moving forward other than Odin Tufto. I think that's what you're going to remember mostly from moving on. The program got back on track. The culture was set. That goes back to Chase Priskie. But at the end of the day, this was good closure for some of the old guard on this team. They got one last hurrah, one last trip to the NCAA playoffs when nobody expected it. But it's the first chapter in the book of this freshman class.
So I think when you say a new dawn, that's interesting to me because I think for me the new dawn of Quinnipiac hockey was 2013 when they make it to the Frozen Four. Ultimately they fall in the national championship game. But that was kind of the dawn of Quinnipiac hockey. Since then, they've been a national powerhouse.
Well,
so what exactly, just elaborate, what are you trying to say when you say new dawn?
They could have went 2 ways after what happened last year. Because even the year before last was a bit of a disappointment for the program compared to its more lofty standards. They could have they didn't have a great recruiting class 2 years ago. They could have folded, or they could have just kept on, they could have gotten 13 great freshmen who have helped out in a big way. The seniors stepped up. The seniors redefined the culture. They doubled down. You're going to remember this as the year where Quinnipiac could have folded. Their identity could have collapsed, but instead they doubled down. They got stronger for it.
I don't think
the freshmen.
I don't think a Rand Pecknold coach team, no matter who's on it, is going to have its identity collapse. I think last year
it did.
Right. I think last year was an outlier, and there's probably many reasons for that me as a media member don't know because I'm not in that locker room. But I think Priskie, yes, is a great reason it's back on track, but I'm not sure I would say a new dawn. That's just an interesting wording for me, but we'll have to see.
Well, guys, you mentioned Chase Priskie, so now let's get into him a little bit. 5 seniors, including Chase Prisky, are now leaving after this season's over. The search for new leadership is on, and we know the team does not have any shortage of talent, but who's going to be the one to have the C stitched onto their jersey next season? Tom, who's your choice?
Liz, I think Chase Prisky was the perfect captain for this team. He hustled all the time. He had good locker room presence. He was good at the media. It's going to be some tough shoes to fill. The best captains do all those things, and there's one player in the Bobcats who checks off all those boxes. That's Alex Whalen.
Okay.
Alex Whalen, the incoming senior, per our own Pat Flatley, who played with Alex Whalen over the men's league in the summer. Not a big deal, according to Pat. Whalen is a gym rat. He lives in the weight room. He's always looking to better himself. That has earned him his teammates' respect. He leads by example. Even when he's not scoring, which isn't that often, he's a pretty good goal scorer, he never drops his compete level. And he's a two-way player, too. Third on the team in blocks among forwards, which goes to show you his defensive effort. He gets tough penalty-killing minutes. He's always got a smile on his face, which is a good trait for a captain to have. He's savvy with the media. He's been here before. And I don't think, MJ, out of the incoming juniors that are here and the incoming underclassmen, I don't think anyone on the team has a better legacy right now that's still here than Alex Whalen. And that's also a good enough reason to give him captain, too. I think his off-ice presence and what he's done on the ice.
Legacy?
Yeah, he
One NCAA tournament appearance, and it came in his third year.
He has some of the best numbers of anybody on this team, and he has a great off-ice presence.
Agreed. 100% in on his off-ice, and his compete level is something I think is very important because even when Quinnipiac was struggling in the Brown series, that second game, he came out and scored 2 goals in that game. So I have nothing against Alex Whalen, but what I think, Liz, to answer your question, who I think is the next captain of this team, it's sophomore Odin Tufto. Now, when you talk, all that high praise on Prisky, again, I'll yield to redundancy on that as well. Phenomenal captain. Pecknold said it, and we all see it as well. He is mentoring Odin Tufto. It's a mentor-mentee relationship. They're roommates when the team goes on the road. You always see them together, whether that's on social media, the team out on the ice, even before games, walking into the arena, whole bunch of things. He's great with the media, not a must, but great with the good to have for sure. Seen a lot. I see a lot of Chase in Odin. He has the stats and the skill to back it up, and I'm not saying your captain has to be your best player, because I'm not sure I'd venture to say Odin is. I'd have to look at probably into a couple more things on that. But he's high character, and he's now gaining that experience that it takes. Here's my one thing about this. We had Prisky as a captain for 2 years here at Quinnipiac. We as media members got to deal with him for 2 years, which was great. It was also great for him to kind of the first year learn how to be a good captain, and the team struggled a little bit.
Was it great? Even he was a little bit overwhelmed, I think you would say, in retrospect, from his first year as captain.
For sure. I think the season, maybe not to use the word great, but him as a captain, it's always great. I mean, I've been the sports director of Q30 for 2 years. My first year was great because I got to kind of learn, and now this year, I'm turning that into more of what I hope to leave as a more successful year.
Well, first things first, I want to vouch that you were a great sports director for both years.
Thank you,
and that's perfectly on the record. But Quinnipiac has had 45 captains, I believe,
okay.
Over 40, and not even 10 of them have been juniors. I can't get behind the idea of a junior captain just 2 years into his year when there are good upperclassmen leaders on this team who could get it instead.
Definitely are, but also speaking of those upperclassmen, Rafferty has just left the team to sign a pro contract.
Assuming Whalen stays, I don't think there's anybody better.
Right, I think Whalen will stay. Shortridge is now gone, signed a pro contract. Could be many other players leaving as well.
So who's better to provide leadership? The one guy left standing.
Well, I think you go with the 2-year captain again because I think it worked.
All right, guys, we'll reconvene once the team officially does announce a captain, but we are now going to take a short break. But when we come back, the boys hand out some winter sports awards, and a familiar face has moved from the hardwood to the dirt. Don't go anywhere.
Welcome to the WQAQ Morning Show. Dan Ball and Emma Spagnolo joining you here from the QAQ studios in Hamden. And Emma, it is that time of year again.
Welcome back to Bobcat Breakdown. Glad you've stuck with us. The Quinnipiac basketball and hockey teams found its players receiving conference awards quite often throughout the season. But tonight, the guys are going to give out some awards of their own. Boys, the first award of the year goes to MVP. Let's see who you got. MJ, you start.
Liz, this one really close for me. When you think of MVP, you say most valuable player, right? So which player was most valuable to their team? I wish I could have had a 1A and a 1B, but ultimately I had to pick one, so I picked Cam Young as my MVP with Chase Prisky as my very close 1B. Now, Young is the kind of guy who Quinnipiac basketball relied on, as was Prisky for Quinnipiac men's hockey. But when you look at the stats he threw down this year, and Tom, we could spend 20 minutes going through all of them, but the ones that stuck out, 1,000 points in 2 seasons at Quinnipiac. Granted, he was here for 3, but that first year he only played 6 minutes and didn't have a point. So that's over 1,000 points in 2 seasons, averaging 20 points a game. When you get a vote to be an All-American, I guess is wrong. The AP All-American votes, he was honorable mention. No one in Quinnipiac has ever gotten that. They may not ever get it again. He's one of the 20 best seniors in college basketball this year. To me, that's grounds for most valuable.
Yeah, for me, it really wasn't that hard. I think it's Cam Young, and by a long shot. He played 36 minutes out of 40 every game, which is a great stat that shows you his conditioning and his drive to the team. Led the team in scoring, improved in almost every conceivable way, beyond clutch. And I think what sold it for me was in his 55-point game, the famous one that got him on the national recognized map against Siena, his team almost lost the game. It took him a double overtime. He put up 55 points, the best performance in 20 years in college basketball, and his team almost lost it anyway. Like you said, All-American runner-up, honorable mention, second MAC player of the year. Prisky's a compelling answer. His scoring did dip as the season went on. The suspension does hurt his case a little bit as well. Actually, my runner-up would have been Andrew Shortridge.
Really?
Because I feel that through all that Quinnipiac has done this year, I think that Shortridge was never at fault for anything this year. A lot of the goals that were given up in games were not his fault. They were defensive breakdowns. You saw it in the playoffs. If you watch the games, you'd know that Shortridge was not the reason why they lost these games. He was close. The Bobcats were 8-3 without Shortridge. I would not want to know the Bobcats' basketball record without
If we had
Cam
more
Young.
time, our producer's going to yell at us, but if we had more time, I would really want to battle you, not because Cam Young's number 1, but number 2. It's got to be Prisky. So valuable. Liz, we got to go.
Okay, now let's talk about a newcomer that hit the ground or the ice running. Rookie of the year. Tom?
Yeah, Liz, even though the men's ice hockey team had 13 freshmen on the team, the best freshman of the year was on the court. It was Tyrese Williams. He became one of the most valued members of the team for his all-around contributions. Third most minutes on the team, shows Baker Dunleavy trusts him. Fourth most threes on the team, so he's a sharpshooter. And second most assists, fourth most rebounds. He can play forward or guard. He's definitely the third option on the team last year behind Young and Kelly. I think moving forward without Cam Young, Williams is going to be the guy that they can really build around. Kelly, he's a good passer. He needs somebody to finish with. I think Williams can be that guy. I think he proved to be that guy. I like that he's good at lots of things. He's very versatile. He was right in the starting lineup the whole year, as he should be.
Liz, I also have Williams, but I'm a little surprised that you said it was Williams over the other guys. The reason I picked Williams, honestly, was because he had all these freshmen on men's hockey. I don't think I could pick just one to be the rookie of the year, so I kind of bumped it down, not necessarily in skill level, but I went with Williams. All your stats are redundant. He fills in at the beginning of the year when Rich Kelly's hurt for those 5 games. Really, that set the tone for Quinnipiac's season. Yes, they were 2-3 at that point, but the team could have struggled. They could have came out 0-5. We know they lost to Villanova early, but Williams stepped in there as the point guard, and he did play a little 2-guard the rest of the year as well. You mentioned his minutes, averaged over 30 a game and 9 points. That's very good for a freshman.
Minutes don't lie. Dunleavy wanted him out late in the game, and
Correct.
He worked with it.
Now, while some teams showed success in postseason appearances, some ended their runs early. However, a coach has to work with what they have. MJ, who do you award the Coach of the Year to?
Easy peasy lemon squeezy. Brent Packnell, Quinnipiac men's hockey. I think he got snubbed of the ECAC Hockey of the Year, ECAC Hockey Coach of the Year award to Clarkson's Casey Jones. 26 wins from a team that, had 9 to 10 freshmen in the lineup on any given day. He got so much out of his team this year. I think he should be very proud of getting this team to the NCAA tournament, and I think this one's a very easy choice.
It's mind-boggling he didn't win the award. Coach of the Year, did the most with the least. You mentioned the stats. Projected to finish 9th, finished 1st, playoff success. NCAAs weren't even on anybody's radar at the beginning of this year. Realistically, Pecknold is easily the Coach of the Year.
No offense to Casey Jones, by the way, but Pecknold got snubbed.
And the last award I have for you guys is the Comeback Player of the Year. Tom, who made the triumphant return for their team?
I think the best part about this award, Liz, it's a little up for interpretation. It's a little ambiguous. It could be an injury. It could be someone who just bounced back from a tough year. I'm going to go with Andrew Shortridge. His year wasn't that bad last year, but it was bad enough to cost him the starting job into this year. He bounced back with the best season of any goalie in the nation. Led the league in goals against, led the league in save percentage. He reached an entirely new high that nobody even thought was possible. I mean, he did it all with upstart NHL draft pick breathing down his neck the whole time. He's my comeback player of the year. Nobody saw this coming.
Yeah, that's honestly a good pick. That didn't even cross my mind. He played so well, he earned himself a pro contract. But for me, it's Brandon Fortunato. We talked about him a little bit earlier. When he transferred to Quinnipiac after 2 years at BU, I knew the name from knowing college hockey, but I was like, wait, why did he leave BU? He had great numbers there, 40 points in 79 games. So he sits out a year, and then last year, when he played for Quinnipiac in his first season back eligible, I was like, this guy had 40 points in 79 games with BU? Like, he just didn't look like the Brandon Fortunato of old. Was not comfortable, didn't have his game legs as he didn't play for a year, and he put up 6 points in 29 games with a -3 for the year. This year, comes back, turns it around, 28 points in 26 games, plus 15 on the year. I mean, come on, that's a comeback.
Pecknold called him a top 5 defenseman in the nation. It's a comeback. For me, his season was just too short, but he's a valid candidate.
Well, guys, we now officially close the door on winter sports and head outside to the diamond, the softball diamond, that is. And while the softball team has its returning players, there are also some newcomers. A new coaching staff, a transfer student, to name a few. However, the biggest addition to the field is Jen Fay. Yes, the 1,000-point scoring women's basketball player with 4 MAC championships under her belt. MJ, let's hear from you first. What do you think about that?
What do I think, Liz? I think it's great for her. She's an all-around athlete. I read an article that the Quinnipiac Chronicle wrote on her, came out this week. She just had an idea for all 4 years that she wanted to play. Didn't want to get hurt and risk her basketball career. Basketball is her #1 sport here, obviously. So now she's done with basketball. Why not? Why not join the team? It's a new coach. She called him up, asked, and they let her on the team. Fantastic story.
I think it's great for Jen Fay. It's fun. I like fun. Who doesn't like fun?
Right.
It's a cool way to end her time at Quinnipiac. But I'm going to say there are a few caveats for me. She hasn't regularly played softball for 5 years.
Right.
There are players in this team who train every day to play softball. They get scholarships, some of them. Faye is going to have to earn her at-bat. She's going to have to earn her hits. And when she does that, she's easily going to be a candidate for more time in the lineup. As long as they don't give her a spot in the lineup, it's great fun.
Well, to be fair, Faye did tell the Chronicle she'd be happy to have 1 or 2 at-bats this year. She just wants to be part of a team to finish off her year, Liz. She played softball in high school, the MVP of her high school team. So, I mean, she definitely knows how to play. But like you said, Tom, Division I, totally different story.
All right, great stuff, guys. We are going to take one more commercial break, but when we return, the guys break down some baseball pitching, and we hit you with our final roars. Stay close.
Welcome to the WQAQ Morning Show. Dan Ball and Emma Spagnuolo joining you here from the QAQ studios in Hamden. And Emma, it is that time of year again.
Welcome back, everyone. We are coming to the end of our show, and you know what that means. It's time for Final Roars. MJ, start us off.
Liz, I'm going to take all the time I can on this one because it might be my last. Q30 has taken me to some pretty cool places. The Frozen Four in Tampa, the women's basketball NCAA tournament in Syracuse, Albany, Providence, Lake Placid, and many more. But Q30 means more to me than just fun trips to cover games. First and foremost, Q30 has given me a tremendous amount of hands-on experience. My personal and professional growth as an aspiring journalist is nothing if not for Q30. From an intimidated yet determined freshman to now the sports director of our station, Q30 has been my home here at Quinnipiac. Some of my best friends here at school have come from this organization. So thank you to those who set the foundation and carved the path of Q30 in years past. It's been an honor and a privilege, a true privilege, to be part of Q30. Thank you to all the coaches, athletes, and athletic administrators who have allowed me to tell their stories. And thank you to you, the viewers, for choosing to get your Quinnipiac news right here on Q30 TV. So as Semisonic said, it's closing time. Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end. Thank you, and good night.
Not sure how I'm not crying from that, but back to Final Roars. We've already been over the impact of the men's ice hockey team's senior class. The team will be losing several key leaders and contributors. However, arguably the bigger loss for this team comes when the team loses multiple juniors to professional hockey. Junior defender Brogan Rafferty has already moved on to the NHL. You can see him make his expected NHL debut on Thursday night for the Vancouver Canucks. Carlos Chuksta is a San Jose Sharks draft pick and could elect to jump ship to the pro ranks, given his 3 outstanding seasons at Quinnipiac. And goaltender Andrew Shortridge, the best goalie in college hockey this year, has reportedly signed with the San Jose Sharks, leaving a huge hole between the pipes. If the Bobcats lose these 3 players, their team will be gutted next year, putting even more pressure on the current freshman class to step up big time, and the next recruiting class has to be even stronger.
The Quinnipiac softball team has had a hot start to conference play this season, currently sitting at 4-0 after sweeping its past 2 opponents. Now let's take a look at some stats. Of the 9 starters, Kayla Jensen is the only player hitting over 300, with Rachel Marchuk falling just below that at 292. 5 players are hitting just over 200, and 2 fall below that. You may be wondering, how does a team produce when many of its players have lower than normal batting averages? Well, that's the point. Batting average in no way represents the talent and success of this team's conference play thus far. This statistic is often used as a way to judge whether or not a player is performing as they should be. The softball team has scored 18 runs in 4 games, and every player has contributed in one way or another. It's time to stop looking at a low batting average as a negative statistic, because a player can produce when it matters most, and this team knows just how to do that. Well, guys, we might have a couple seconds left, so what did you guys think of our baseball talk when we were trying to decide which pitcher is following Tyler Poulin?
Well, Liz, right
Extra
now,
time at the end of the show. We never have this, so.
let's go with it, right?
Soak it in.
So
Let's use
Chris
it.
Take it all in.
Enns is the guy that John Delaney has been starting number 2 in the game. But I have a case for Arthur Carrera, who's, 3rd on the rotation right now. Hasn't had a bad start this year. 3rd best ERA on the team. 2nd best whip. 3rd in strikeouts. The numbers are all there. He hasn't had a bad start yet this year. Enns had a couple clunkers early. He's been better lately. Carrera, for me, is a big breakout star on this team they're going to have to build around.
I think it's going to be Enns. I mean, Don Delaney knows his team much better than I would. If he thinks Enns is the number 2 starter, I see no reason to challenge that. You can look at ERA, Enns at a 5.28, Correa with a 2.67. Yes, that may lead you to think, but if that's the only stat you look at, then you're a little bit off, because I do think Enns right now will continue to be the number 2
listed 3 more stats. What more do you want? He's better than Enns in all of them.
If we had time to argue, I'd battle you with it, Tom. I don't. We're getting wrapped up here. That is the end of the show. You win this argument.
I'll take it.
Well, that is now all the time that we have for tonight. Be sure to check out all of our content on Q30TV.com and theQBSN.com, and follow us on Twitter at Q30Sports and at QBSN. From the crew, producers, M.J. Baird, and Tom Krosnowski, I'm Liz Flynn. Have a great night.